Well, good evening, Converge. We're so glad that you came to join us via Facebook Live. This is our fourth preview service, if you can believe it, as a new church. And we are excited to be able to do this, even though we couldn't be together. We're excited to take this opportunity to work some glitches out virtually for you tonight. And we're just glad to be able to, like I said, work out some of these glitches that we're messing with right now. And tonight, we're going to have some fun kind of surprises for you, some ways for you to engage, because our hope tonight is not that you just are hanging out with football in the background or doing the dishes, but it can actually listen, engage to what's going on tonight for our night of worship. And so stay tuned for that. We have some fun things coming, but I also want to let you know about some of the things that have been going on. And one of that is we're here at Center Avenue Church that's let us come in to their home and hang out here, and we're grateful to have this little setup here. And one of the things that we got to do this week was to be able to help support some of the Samaritan's Purse shoe boxes that went out this week and help and partner with them. And we're continuing to look for ways to partner with their ministry as a way of just expressing our gratitude, along with helping out with the 12 Baskets food pantry a couple weeks ago during our Engage weekend. So again, excited for some things happening, for some things going on. And today, what I want to mention is one of the difficulties of this is not having stuff immediately available for our kids. And we love our Converge kids, in fact. And so we can't do everything we'd hope if you had Converge kids here, but there is a link we're putting on the Facebook Live feed right now that you can click in there, and it won't really work to do it right now while you're watching, but it'll give you something to do later. In addition, we have special plans for family Advent worship over the month of December, and we're going to give you instructions on that later this week as well. But like I said, we love our kids, and we really want our kids to be leaders in worship as well. And so they did this fun video for our call to worship, for our beginning here. And so I want to have you have them let you be led in worship in this call to worship from Psalm 95 by our young Converge kids.
Come, let's sing to the Lord. Let us shout joyfully to the rock of our salvation.
Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song.
For the Lord is our great God, the King above all gods. In his hands are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him.
Seas his firm hand, his hands made the dry land.
Come, let us bow down in worship. Let us kneel before our Lord Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture.
Flock under his care.
Say yay!
Man, we love that. Super, super cool to get our kids' ministry involved here in what we're doing to worship today. We're going to continue in worship, and I'm going to try to channel my inner Will Alderman, if anybody out there remembers him doing stuff like this. Rocking a drum set, well, just a drum and a guitar today. But we're going to start with Glorious Day, and I'd encourage you to try to sing along at home with us if you want to give that a shot. But this song's just a lot of fun, so please sing with me. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new, Jesus, when I met you, you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue. You were my... Let me try that one again. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy, but your weight at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was an orphan, but you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Your air is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future. My eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now called my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day.
Well, thanks, Jake. And hi, guys. I'm Mackenzie. I'm so glad that you're joining us from home tonight. We are excited to be with you and just to be worshiping with you. So, first of all, we need to know who's out there and if you're new. And so instead of having a physical connection card here, we need you to go ahead and click on the link in the chat so that you can fill out a connection card and let us know who you are and how we can connect with you best. But then also we do have a space on there for prayer requests. And if you are new or if you've been with us since the beginning, we want to know what we can do to pray, what we can pray about for you. And so a dedicated team of Convergers are ready to pray for you. So fill that out, get it to us, and we can make sure and connect with you soon. So here at Converge, we're on a 3-week rotation. So tonight you're experiencing a preview service. Now, after our preview service, during the next week, we have something that's called an Engage Weekend. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. And then the third week is actually an encounter worship night where we get together and we worship and we take some time to just really to praise God. So specifically, I want to tell you about the Engage Weekend coming up. We have kind of a different Engage Weekend coming up. Typically on these, we go out and we want everybody in our community to connect and to really take some time, whether it's with family or friends, to have some great conversations and really engage them instead of coming to church. But this next weekend is special, and that's because it's a holiday weekend. And I don't know if you remember, but what do we usually say for holidays? I hope you said it. But holidays are for mission. And so we believe that instead of just coming to church on a holiday, that you should be going out and connecting with the people around you. I mean, that's what normal people do, right? They get together with people on holidays and they have fun. So just like our other holidays are for mission, this coming weekend, we would like to challenge you to go out and you're going to do 2 and 2. And what you're going to do is 2 deeds. So really making sure that you're finding 2 ways to love someone around you. And really that is to show them the love of Christ. And then you're going to find 2 ways to have a deeper conversation. And that can be about what you're grateful for, or it can be about what God's doing in your life currently. So that's your challenge this coming weekend during the Engage Weekend. Then on December 6th, we're going to have an encounter worship night where we get an opportunity to really grow, and we get an opportunity to experience and really encounter God through worship and a teaching of someone in our community. And then on December 13th, we'll be back here for our next preview service. Now, something else I wanted to let you know is we as a community have decided to come around and engage 2 families specifically during this holiday season. So what we're doing is we have 2 families that really do need support. The first family actually has 4 boys, the ages 6 to, I think, 16. The mother has stage 4 cancer and COVID right now, and the father is just recently out of work. So we want to find ways to bless them. This coming Tuesday, I think, you're going to get our email with the details about that. But not only that family, you're also going to hear about a refugee family that we're going to be helping out too. And they have 4 kids as well. And they don't have many connections just in the local community and just need some support and extra love this holiday season. So we really hope that you'll take time to engage with us and really support them through physical and tangible things that we can bless them with. Now, something that we highly value here at Converge is stories. We love telling stories. And specifically, we love it when people can come forward and just tell a story about what God has done in their life, just so that we're able to see how it is He loves us and that how others experience Him. So tonight, I'm excited to just give the stage over to Kaylee Losi, who has been with us since the beginning, and she's going to tell us more about her story.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be reading off my phone just a little bit because my husband tells me if I don't take notes, then I will talk for 45 minutes. And I'm not giving the sermon today, so maybe another time. So my faith journey story starts from when I was a very young child. I grew up in the church, in the Christian home. I went to Christian schools my whole life. Church was just always a part of life as far back as I can remember. When I was a kid, church felt like an obligation to me. It felt a lot like we went through the motions. We had to show up every Sunday dressed in our Sunday best. We had to sign the attendance folder, and if we didn't, somebody would show up at our house and ask us where we were. We did the Sunday school thing. I memorized Heidelberg Catechism, and it was very much, it felt like school, like another day of school. The pastor spoke in a way that I didn't really understand as a kid. There were a lot of big words and fancy theological ideas that just didn't resonate for me as a child. So I kind of started off with not the greatest opinion of church. It felt like everybody showed up and kind of put on a face and pretended everything was great, and we had all these rules we had to live up to, all of these things we had to memorize, and it simply just felt like an obligation to me. In middle school, my family transitioned to a new church in town. It was in the middle of a cornfield out in the boonies. The first thing I noticed the first Sunday that we were there, we were all dressed, in our typical Sunday dresses. My dad was in a suit, and there were people in jeans, which was wild. There were guys that literally drove their tractors to the church parking lot, hopped off, and came inside wearing their farm clothes. Also, people brought in coffee and drank coffee during the service, which was revolutionary. So this was the start of a good change for me as a middle schooler. I started to understand church in a different way. The pastor spoke in ways that I could understand. He tailored his messages for people of all ages, which was a refreshing change for me. I participated in Sunday school and youth group, and for the first time kind of experienced faith as something that I could explore and grow in, not just something that I needed to memorize all the right things and be able to regurgitate the information that I was fed. So that was a great start for me to change my mind about what church should look like. After middle school, after high school, I went off to college, and I stopped going to church for a while. Truthfully, it was because nobody was making me go. I was lazy about my faith and a little bit apathetic. I never ran from my faith specifically. I didn't make a decision that I was not going to be a Christian. I just got lazy. I was really intimidated about the idea of trying to find a new church in a new city when none of my friends were church-going people in college either. So I let that fear really just dictate what I was going to do, and I let it be my excuse to not go to church. At that time, I also generally felt like my faith was something that was supposed to be private to me. I felt like I wasn't a good enough Christian to be public about my faith, and didn't want people to judge me for being a bad Christian if I didn't do everything correctly. So I spent a couple years just being stagnant, not really engaging in church in any tangible way. Then we're going to fast forward to 2013. Shortly after I'd moved to Kalamazoo, Jake and I were dating, and he had expressed an interest in checking out a church, trying to find a church home. I was okay with the idea, wasn't particularly excited about it, but I was open to it. So we started the process of looking at churches. We went to a couple, and the Bridge, I think, was our second or third stop. And up until about a year ago, we never left. We were, I think, 3 weeks in to attending the Bridge, and Jeff Winke informed us that we were joining a life group. Didn't ask us if we wanted to, just told us we were joining a life group. Hey, you guys need to be a part of this. It's going to change your life. I didn't want to go. I don't like new people. I'm scared to talk to strangers. I would rather just sit in the back of the church and blend in and not be called out. That experience of joining a life group radically changed my world. It was the first time that I was in a group of Christian people who were honest about their day-to-day lives. We spent time in each other's homes, sharing meals together, and we were going through a Bible study program, more or less, but the group was primarily based on forming relationships and just living authentically with each other. For the first time, I was realizing I didn't have to be a perfect Christian. I didn't have to have all of my life together to be in a relationship with Jesus. And I also didn't have to have it all figured out to be able to share my faith with other people. And sharing my faith with others has been something I've struggled with my whole life. So this was a monumental change for me. So when we first started hearing about Mitch and Mackenzie's vision for Converge, it was a resounding gong in my head that, okay, we have to do this with these guys. Kind of the most recurring theme that we heard was this idea of community and being authentic, having relationships that are built on honesty and being open with each other, hanging out with our church friends and our non-church friends at the same time, welcoming them into this story, not trying to shove my faith down somebody's throat, but letting them see the story of transformation in my own life and using that as kind of that catalyst to excite them about learning more and maybe trying to figure out what is this thing that we're so passionate about. So my journey is far from over, just like everybody's. We're always learning and growing and changing, but I'm so grateful that no matter how weird and long and windy my faith journey has been, that it brought our family to this place, to this particular weird year that we're in, to this season of life where we can really start to engage the community, to connect with people, and to use our stories of our lives to hopefully impact others as well.
Well, thanks so much, Kaylee, for that awesome story, but just a great picture of what we're all about. And some of you know this, especially if you're just tuning in for the first time, you may not know this, but Kaylee and Jake were our official first commitments to Converge Community, so obviously they have a very near and dear spot in our hearts, and I just love hearing that story and just how clearly articulated so much of what Kenzie and I and the rest of Converge Community is all about here. So again, thanks, Kaylee, for sharing that. One of the things that we're going to do today is that we're going to be kind of jumping back into our Wall Breaker series that we've been in this whole time. And for those who are maybe new or don't know what this is all about, this is really a series looking at how do we, as followers of Jesus, be people that break down walls of division, be people of unity and people of peace. And instead of continuing to promote and incite more of this divisive behavior and talk all around us that you guys know all too well. And we've looked at that powerful principle that God gave us in love in that first week, and how he has called us to love in such radical ways that if we're doing it right, really, there shouldn't be a lot of division around us. And we looked at humility and time spent and how those things actually help us to be people of unity when we're living those out and acting those out. And today, we're going to take one more step and talk about gratitude. And this is obviously just very timely because it's Thanksgiving week, if you can believe it. For some of you might thinking this year has just drug on, but here we are already in the Thanksgiving season. And we're going to be talking about gratitude today. And one thing about gratitude is that it's really hard to be grateful in a year like 2020, right? Like, there's just a lot that seems to be going not so great, and it's easy to focus on that negative. And so I said we're going to be doing some fun stuff and trying to get you to gauge a little bit. This is it. Matt Farrow is going to put a poll, a Facebook Live poll out there right now and give you this first question. But what I want to do is I want you to tell me on a scale from 1 to 5 how 2020 has gone for you, 1 being the worst ever, 5 being obviously the best. So go ahead and answer that question now, and I'm going to keep talking, but as some of those come in, I'm going to revisit this too. But this is just the point that it is really difficult to express gratitude, to show gratitude when things around you seem like they're not going so well. And 2020 has certainly been that. I've got my suspicions what this number might be. My preliminary guess is somewhere, if we had an average, in the land of about 1.8. We'll see how good and how close I am to this. But the thing about it is I don't think that our lack of expression of gratitude is always a picture of our gratitude level. And what I mean by this is sometimes just because we don't express gratitude doesn't mean that we're not grateful. There's a lot of things that could be going on in this situation. And one of them, I'm going to mention a few here, one of them is just that we're just not reflecting, not very aware of the good things. Because you guys have experienced this before. Somebody says one bad thing to you, it could wipe away 10 good things that somebody shared to you or with you that week, right? And so that's the nature of negativity. It just kind of overcomes you, and you've not reflected or been aware of what kind of good things or things to be grateful are around you. It's not necessarily that you're not grateful, it's just what it is. Another thing is that we can often become overcome by negativity. And this is just that process of things have been bad so long that we actually just kind of fall victim to that negativity. It kind of overcomes us. This is where the land of kind of mental health issues and some of that stuff come into play, where even if we could get beneath all that and express our gratitude, it just isn't at the forefront of our mind. And of course, fatigue or apathy is related to that, just becoming a pattern of thanklessness. It's just becoming wearing us so long that it's not that we're not thankful, we just have this pattern of thanklessness that lives out. And this is probably, I've got a feeling, is maybe happening right now in you and my life going through this. But one of the things that I've realized is that discontentment is also an interesting expression of a lack of gratitude, right? And what I mean by this is not to say we're not grateful for the things we have, but when we express discontentment or when we feel discontentment, it actually, in a way, shows our lack of gratitude. And discontentment often comes from comparisons. It comes from comparing ourselves to other people. It comes from comparing ourselves to other times or seasons in our life. And this is a certainly good example of this, where many of us just kind of want to rewind a year and go back to Christmas season 2019. And these types of comparisons actually breed more and more discontentment. And here's the problem with discontentment. And this is in your slide deck. Sorry we didn't get that up. We tried, and we've got some weird glitchy stuff. Like I said, this virtual experience is great for us because it's keeping you safe, but also it's helping us learn and get through some of these technical issues as well. But in that slide deck is this one of the slides, and it says that discontentment drives division. We're in this wall breaker series. The problem with discontentment is that when we start comparing like that to other people, all of a sudden walls start going up around us, where we start thinking, oh man, I don't really like that person because they have this, or man, I don't really like that person because I didn't get this opportunity and they did, or man, I just don't really want to go back, or I don't want to live this life anymore. I want to go back to 2019, and you start building up some edge around maybe people that maybe are just like really happy about 2020 because they got a little bit of a break in life. So those are the kinds of things is when we start being discontent like this, it actually creates these walls around us where we start getting much more of an us versus them mentality. And we're going to go dive deeper into that today. But the idea is that essentially when we're discontent, we're focused on that more, different, better, right? And when we're focused on that more, different, better, we start getting jealous of what others have. And you know what's funny about that jealous of being other had? There's this famous group of statements that you should know about. 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not covet your neighbor. Why did this make the top 10? Well, I think this is why. Because one, God calls us to gratitude and wants us to be content with what we have. But he also knows when we get jealous and envy our neighbors, it drives a wedge of disunity, of division between you and other people. And that ultimately, when we start living like that, it propagates and propels that division that we are seeing all around us right now. And we're just not about that. We don't want to be these people that are envious of that person that has the job you want, or the family you want, or the car you want, or, just this mentality of they have it easier than me. And you're going to see that in the story today that we're going to share. So the opposite of this is what is true, and this is what I hope that we walk away with today, and that is that gratitude grows our contentment. So if discontentment is an expression of thanklessness, gratitude actually, obviously, is not just an expression of contentment, but it actually grows our contentment because we start focusing on the things that we have, and we start really being appreciative of those and not necessarily wanting more. Because gratitude guards us against consumerism. And that is, like it or not, that is a problem in our culture right now, is just that more, now mentality. And a good example of this is, this is years ago now. Our kids are 13 and 12, which is crazy. But years ago, they were probably in those 5, 6, 7 years. And we were fully on we're like a Netflix family, no commercials. And this was before even things like Hulu and stuff started sticking those commercials in and ruining your life. But one of the things that our kids experience is when they watch TV at our house, there were no commercials. They were very happy with their secondhand toys that they got from mom and dad. They loved them. They didn't need anything more. And what's crazy is when they would go to their grandparents' house, either sets, they would watch cable. Now, cable still has your commercials. And it took us a couple times to figure out what was going on. We didn't know if our parents were plotting against us and feeding them with all these things that they needed. But we realized, it's the commercials they're watching. And they would come home like, man, I want this, those Hatchimals, which doesn't make sense to me. I want this Nerf gun. And it was funny is because these Nerf gun thing would come up. And I'm just thinking, you have 73 different Nerf guns. Yeah, but this one shoots 47 bullets at one time, and you don't even have to pump it, and it's battery operated. And this is exactly the problem is before that, they didn't even realize that they were content. They were just like, oh, life is good. We have cool Nerf guns. And then they go watch a commercial, and they're like, man, my Nerf guns stink. I need a new super Nerf gun, and I won't be happy till I do. And this is the problem with that consumeristic cycle that we get into is when we were full of gratitude, full of contentment, now all of a sudden that's washed away because we've compared to what we don't have and maybe others have, or we think that others have. So we're going to look at this today because in the end, we know gratitude's a big deal. We've experienced in our lives. We know we feel better when we're focused on more of the things we're thankful for. Some of you may have done these Thanksgiving challenges that are out there around Thanksgiving where we focus on just things and write down things we're grateful for, and you've seen the fruit of that. But here's the thing. There's actually really good positive psychology research out there that shows when you focus on things you're thankful for, your satisfaction in life actually goes up dramatically. And how they would do these tests is they would have some people just journal on things they're thankful for. Some people just journal on things that they didn't like, that were bad, basically. And then they had, on one of these studies, I was looking at people that just journaled on things that they remembered that week and didn't really ascribe it a negative or positive value. And without even much comparison, those who focused on the positive had just more joy in their life. But what's interesting is those people actually had improved relationships. So not only does it help your satisfaction in life, it actually helps those around you too. And you find more joy in them, they find more joy in you, and I would argue that you find more joy in your faith, in your relationship with God too. So if research and our experience doesn't say enough, obviously we know the Bible is pretty clear on this too. There's so many expressions or so many commendations to show and express your gratitude, not just for God, but others too. And we see that continually through those first 5 chapters, the Torah in the Bible, where God is continually commanding the people of Israel to go and kind of commemorate those great things they did. If you guys caught our worship night this past Sunday, this is a new brand that we're working with here, Encounter Worship Night, and Jake kicked us off, who was leading us in that first song. He taught on Israel, and this is one of the things that he mentioned, is how one of the commands they had was to actually do these things so they can train their children up, so their children can remember. God wanted them too to be very grateful so that generations would know what God did, but also so we can give him his due, recognizing as God who is responsible for the blessings going on in their life. And then if you look forward, they're all over in the Psalms. You heard that awesome Psalm 95 from our wonderful Converge kids. You're going to hear another one, 118, here pretty soon. And we're going to look at that. But the Psalms are loaded with praises, not just to God, but where the psalmist is kind of commanding God's people to praise as well. And you see it all over the New Testament too. All the different New Testament writers are not just expressing their gratitude for their faith and things like that, but often you see them in their letters, they're expressing their gratitude for individuals in the church community. And I think that's really cool, and I think that's really powerful, and I think we need to learn from that, of being people that not just thank God for what we have, but thanking people for what God's doing in them, thanking people for just the goodness and the qualities we see in them. And you see often these New Testament writers doing that very thing. Paul, you see it left and right in his many letters. What's interesting, though, is in the New Testament, we don't actually see any really direct teachings by Jesus on gratitude alone. And this is interesting, and I scoured this. I'm like, man, that doesn't make sense. It seems like this would be one he taught about. And I'm just ripping through all the different Gospels, trying to figure out how this connects. And one parable jumped out to me, and it relates to this contentment thing that we've been talking about. So I want to go ahead and read that to you right now. And it's in Matthew 20, verses 1 through, 1 through 16. So if you have your Bible, you can follow along. If you have that slide deck open, it's written up in there too. I think I use the NET version because I like that. I'm going to read the NIV too. So if you're following that one, that's great. But I'm going to read that for you right now. You can listen, or you can open up and follow along. It says this: "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, 'You also go and work in my vineyard, and I'll pay you whatever is right.' So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 in the afternoon and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, 'Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?' He said, 'Because no one has hired us,' they answered. He said to them, 'You also go and work in my vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first.' The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came and each received a denarius. So when those who came were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. These who were hired last worked only 1 hour, they said, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them, I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. This is a really interesting story. It's a parable. So this didn't actually happen that we know of. This is a story that Jesus taught to communicate some truth. And in this case, he's trying to communicate truth about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, Jesus' kingdom. And he's giving this parable, this story, to try to make a point. What's interesting in these parables is sometimes you can look in the way that the Bible was preserved and put together and collected, and we believe sovereignly, divinely by God. You can find some of these themes or connections before and after maybe a passage where you're like, oh, he's talking a lot about this for the last chapter and a half. I bet it's kind of about this too. And that is true in this, and there are some connections, but it's not as concrete. So we have in chapter 19, he talks about when people are mad at the little kids for coming to Jesus. He says, no, come to me like little children. He loves little kids, and it's about humility. And that reminds you the first will be last statement he makes. After that, it's this story about the rich ruler and how hard it is to come to faith when you're wealthy. And his reason is because often you can do all the right things, but your money, he's kind of warning, is some kind can be your God, your idol. After this story, so that leads you right up to 20 and 21, it comes into this weird scenario when John and James' mother go to Jesus and try to lobby for James and John to sit on the right and left hand of Jesus in heaven, which is such a mom move. Moms would do that, like, come on, my boys are the best. But he does this, and Jesus kind of says, look, the last will be first. He says the same thing here. He says, come humbly. That's who's going to stand up. So you're getting some of these connections here. But one of the things that people make out of this parable is this kind of salvation connection. I think it is there because that rich ruler deal was about salvation, where many people say, well, what this is a story of saying those who actually come to faith later in life, they get the same reward as those who've been worshiping their whole lives. And that's true. We know that. And that's a glorious truth about God's mercy and grace. And some have even kind of taken another step and say it's a story about Jesus trying to teach the Jewish people, hey, you've been following God for a long time, but now it's time for the Gentiles too, and they get the same reward, and maybe Jews wouldn't like that. And I think the connections are there for that, but that's what you see a lot of times in the commentaries is this. I think that there's something more general about it. I think you could make those connections, but what I see in this story is just a story, a parable about God's economy, about God's sovereignty, about who God is and his character and what the kingdom of God is actually like. And so one of the things that I think is interesting about this is he goes on to describe this scenario in a rough Roman situation where if you were Roman, things were pretty good for you, but many people did not have the Roman citizenship. And if you weren't, this whole kind of setup of where they're going into the marketplace and then looking for work. Maybe you've seen some old Great Depression movies where they do this. They go to the docks and try to get selected. Kind of the modern manifestation of this is like a temp service where you just don't have steady work and you need to get something that day. Usually that's an indication of a bad economy, right? When things aren't good and you're just kind of desperate to get some work. And so he sets up the narrative in the struggles of the Roman economy that weren't great for non-Roman people. And so why I say this is important, because this vineyard owner goes in here and he's actually trying to tell them, or trying to show them, these people that he hired early in the morning, they were probably really grateful to have that work. And not only that, he paid them a denarius. In the NET version, it says standard wage because that was the Roman standard wage for a day. The other thing about a rough economy is a ruthless maybe landowner would try to negotiate maybe half a denarius, right? Because when there's more laborers and opportunity, they can leverage that a little bit. But he paid them the full day's wage, and they were probably really content with that, really happy with that. They got some work, and they got a full wage for that work, which is great, and they go to work. And then all of a sudden, you see how this story unfolds, right? So they start working at 6 a.m., and then at 9, noon, 3, and then 5, he goes and gets more people. And he says, I'm going to pay whatever is right. Now, these people actually negotiated, the first people, a wage. These other people got hired late. So in the same way, they probably are really content with just having work because they weren't planning on working at all that day because they'd missed kind of that morning call. And now they get an opportunity to work, so they didn't even try to negotiate with the landlord there. He just said, I'll pay you whatever's right, and they took him for his word. They're like, great, that sounds good. And so that's what they did. And I wonder if immediately when these full-day workers started seeing these new workers come in at the different hours, if they already started thinking, what's going on here? Like, I wonder how much they're getting paid. They didn't even have to work a full day. I wonder if they went and asked some of them, say, hey, what are you getting paid? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But imagine if one of them said, well, he just said whatever is right. And that person's thinking, well, I know what's right. It's less than me. Right? That's what they're thinking. And they go on and work the day. And what's really interesting about this is Jesus could have avoided, well, the owner, Jesus is telling the story, the owner could have avoided all the controversy by simply just paying the full day workers first. But he didn't. He wanted to make sure the last. Why do you think he did that? Well, Jesus is telling the story. It's his story. I think he's doing that because Jesus is trying to make a point, right? But if you kind of zero in on the story's context, it's because that landowner is trying to make a point. And he's trying to show everybody there about his generosity. But unfortunately, those full-day workers did not experience it as his generosity. Actually, just the opposite. Because as the day went on, more people came, their anxiety level started rising, their suspicion started rising, and they started renegotiating the terms in their head, saying, well, then I guess I should get paid 2 denarius, right? I don't know if they thought that or not, but that's kind of what you can imagine would be going on. And I love this story because it absolutely speaks to this idea of contentment. They started very content, and as more people came, you get a feeling that maybe their discontentment started brewing. Whereas the opposite is true for the others. They had no expectations early in the morning after the workers had already been selected, they were going to make any money. So they had no expectations, and all of a sudden they've got work, and at the end of the day, they get a full day's wage. They couldn't believe that. So they had no expectations and got this wonderful surprise and had deep contentment in that, where the opposite was true. Those full-day workers, they started content, and the discontentment started brewing, ultimately led to disappointment, that yearning, craving for more, better that we talked about. Now, why this is important is because I think we do a lot of the same stuff. When we have expectations, man, we get disappointed a lot. And it's not to say we shouldn't put expectations on our lives or things like that, but we just have to check those once in a while. And that's exactly what that landowner does. He says, why are you mad at me? This is the deal we made. Why would you get paid more than what we agreed to? And he basically calls them and says, are you just mad because I'm generous, because you're envious of them? And they even make the comment, they say, well, you made them equal to us. And this is the problem. This is all about superiority. They're comparing from go. They're like, well, they worked 3 less hours than us. I guess I'm kind of better than them because I've worked harder than them. And they start playing out these games, and they say this, you've made them equal to us. This is about position, prominence, superiority, money, all that stuff that creates division around us. This is a problem. Discontentment is a problem. What I love is when we get those unsuspected surprises. I'm got a poll coming up for you in a second. Just a few days ago, I was literally working on this message, and my daughter Kaylee comes down from the upstairs. She's like, Mom, Dad, I just found $50 under my lamp. I'm just like, wow, that's awesome. I want to find $50 under my lamp. And it's that whole deal. She had no idea that money was there. She didn't remember when she put it. I'm sure it was actually mine. I should probably reclaim it. But she had no idea. It was just this unsuspected surprise, and she was full of gratitude. And that's the cool thing about this. There's a quote that Kenzie sent me, a guy named Seth Godin. He's a marketing guru. I don't know if he's a Christian or not. But in his blog, he does these little mini blogs. He says, an attitude of entitlement doesn't increase the chances you'll get what you want. And it ruins the joy of things you get. Win or lose, you lose. The idea being, if you have a lot of these big expectations, you think you're going to get it, you think you deserve it. When you get it, it doesn't even feel that good. And then when you don't, when your expectation too high, you don't, and you're just obviously disappointed, and there's no joy there either. So here's the poll for you, is what would be your favorite unexpected surprise? Is it $20 in your coat pocket, your favorite beverage in the back of the refrigerator, a snow day, standard shipping that arrives the next day? I don't know, Matt might have put other ones in there too, I have no idea. But I want to hear what your favorite unexpected surprise would be when you had no expectations and boom, it happens. This is a big deal for us, is our lack of gratitude is built, or our lack of contentment is built on this desire for more, better, different all the time. And we have to readjust our expectations. This is what I think this story is saying, and this is, if you had the notes, we're going to kind of summarize here at the end, is Jesus makes some claims about his kingdom in here. And he says, in Jesus' kingdom, I'm saying in Jesus' kingdom, Jesus says, I am king, and we are not, right? This is the heart of this story. This is about God's economy. This is about God's position in the world. God determines who gets what and when. Not our experiences, not our deductions, not our wisdom. We can't be like those full-day workers and be like, well, if I was the vineyard worker, I would do it this way, and I would pay according to this, and blah, blah, blah. We try to do that, but that's wrong, because God is the king, and we're not. That's just our reality, but we try to project that. And this is, some of you guys might be familiar with this. There's a thread that goes through the church today, and it's a dangerous one, I think. Some people call it the prosperity gospel. It's this idea that if you do all the right things, if you have all this big faith, if you check all the right boxes, God will bless you abundantly. And it's this weird transactional idea. And I'm not saying that God wouldn't do that. I'm just saying it's not as transactional as they want to believe it is. And the problem is that the New Testament says otherwise. The New Testament says a lot that actually the opposite. Your life's going to be hard if you follow Jesus. You're going to be in trouble. People aren't going to like you. There's promises in heaven, but not necessarily here. And oh yeah, the Old Testament, there is a little bit of that, like if you give, you'll get. The problem is this book called Job, where Job did all the right things, and actually he was selected because of his faith. And then, obviously, he loses everything. And what happens here is that this story is all about saying, you know what? It's not that transactional. God may choose to bless you, but it's not like a guarantee here. And that is a problem when we start thinking like that, because we can't impose our broken, incomplete views on the world, onto God's plan. He only gets to do that because he's the king. 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18 says this, always be joyful, never stop praying, be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ. And I think this is really interesting. He sums up God's will in these three statements: joy, which we're talking about, never stop praying, which is about dependence on God, and then be thankful in all circumstances. Why in the world would he say be thankful in all circumstances? Because the Thessalonians were dealing with some rough circumstances. It wasn't easy. It wasn't all gravy. And so this is an acknowledgement that it's going to be tough, but we should be thankful and express our gratitude anyways. In Jesus' kingdom, he also says the last are first, and the first will be last. And so this idea is that we have to come before God with low expectations on what we think we're going to get. He actually says to the rich ruler, sell everything, right? We have to realize that God has called us to come before him humbly. And really, our ability to be the least of these, if you will, directly relates to our ability to be content in life. If we're not comfortable being the least of these, we're never going to be content. And that is a hard, difficult call. And so this is this challenge that you see over and over, that it's those lowly, humble, not looking at, I'm better, you've brought them on my level, this superior thinking that drives the kingdom of heaven. It's just the opposite. It's humility, and that's what Jesus came to exhibit in his life. It also says that we receive based on his generosity and not our deservedness, thankfully, right? We receive based on his generosity, not on our deservedness. Those full-day workers thought they were getting it because they deserved it. And Jesus, or the worker, the owner, he's like, well, no, you don't deserve it. Like, you don't deserve more. We agreed to this, right? We agreed to this. So why would you think you deserve more? And what's interesting, that's how the story plays out. But if you think about our actual lives, what do we deserve? Well, you know, if you work hard, you think I deserve this in my job, or I deserve this in my family. But here's the deal. If we actually think more cosmically about this world and the spiritual realms, what do we deserve? Well, the Bible is very clear. We're broken, messed up people. We deserve death. So the baseline here, if we're taking that salvation thread, is that we get the same reward, which is great. But this other part of the story is anything over that is just God's exhibiting his generosity, and it's at his discretion how he does that. We don't get to point to others and say, why didn't you give to them like you gave to me? Or vice versa, I mean. And then the last thing, we've talked about this already, is that gratitude grows contentment. We have to live that out. And discontentment drives division. Those who are discontent cause a relational rift with other people around them. We cannot be those people. We have to be very grateful and content with what we have so we can be people of peace, people who live peacefully and draw people around us that would say, man, whatever you have, I want that, and be an opportunity for the gospel, an opportunity to show them what God's kingdom is all about. So what does this mean for us? This comes down to our last poll here pretty quick. But there's 4 things that I think we should be doing based on this. And I know we're all going to be struggling with discontentment. It's just real, especially in a tough year like this. But one of them that I think we need to do is we just have to adjust our expectations. I've said this over and over and over. But what do you actually deserve is the question. And I know that's a tough thing to ask because you think, man, I work hard. I deserve, yeah, maybe. In worldly terms, maybe you do. But you'll never be content with that attitude. What we actually deserve is death and separation from God. And by his grace, he's resolved that if you're a follower of Jesus. And anything else is just gravy. That's blessing at his discretion. The other thing I think we need to do is we need to stop comparing. We need to stop envying and allowing these walls to exist around us. We need to stop looking at other people or other seasons or other goals to get jealous of. Maybe we need to rethink what your goals are, or the company you spend time around. What's actually causing you to think that you need more all the time? Because it's also causing you to have that us versus them mentality. You may not even realize it, but it is. So what are you basing your life plan from? Are they ultimately people's accomplishments, that's your goal? Or is it the Bible's plan for kingdom work? That's tough. Because if you're watching HGTV, I'm telling you, your house will never be good enough, right? If you're hanging out with really powerful, wealthy people, you'll never have enough. If you're not being generous yourself, you'll always want more money. These are the kinds of things, the habits, the company, the things we do that drive our comparison. Another thing we maybe need to think about doing is stop, quote unquote, renegotiating the terms. We do this all the time. We think, I'm really content right now, Jesus, till 5 minutes later when you're not. And I had this happen this past week. I was hunting, and I've told this to many people. I love hunting so much because I just get to go decompress, unplug, be in the woods, be with my dad, be with my kids. I love that. I don't need a deer until I did. And then I remember the last day hunting, it was a rough hunting opening couple days, thinking, man, God, if you could just bring a buck in, that'd be great. I want to see him. It'd be cool. I know he's going to come from that way. And I honestly didn't think he would. Not because he's not faithful, just because that seemed like a petty request. And sure enough, right at dark, I see the shadow come in. He moves in, and I was jockeying with my scope in and out, trying to get it in the sight. I finally see it. Sure enough, it was a buck. I finally, because he kept going in the woods and coming out, I finally get him in clear view, and he's a small buck, smaller than I wanted to shoot. And I remember thinking, wow, God, you brought a buck. That's pretty cool. Until 5 minutes later. Then I'm like, dang it, God, why couldn't it have been a big buck that I could have shot? Sorry if you guys are opposed to that sort of thing. I eat it, I promise. But anyways, I just realized at that moment, I'm renegotiating the terms real time, just like these guys did. They never talked to the landowner about this. Actually, it would have made more sense at 9 o'clock when those first ones came and said, hey, guy, do we get more money? Do they get less? If they were really worried, but they didn't. They were renegotiating the terms in their head. And quite frankly, they didn't have a right to. They weren't the landowner. And we do that to God all the time. We have to be content. We have to stop renegotiating the term. The last one is that we need to express our gratitude and praise God. How do you typically, what's your habits when it comes to praise? How often are you recognizing God for what he does? How often do you even praise people for what they're doing? How often do you praise God for what other people are doing? Are you generally a complainer? Are you generally an optimist? These are good things that could kind of determine where you're at. And maybe with all of these, you just need to spend some time this week reflecting on your general disposition. Maybe you need to, on a journal, start journaling, what are the things that I'm grateful for? Or maybe what has been my behavior? Maybe you just need to have a discipline of praise where you say, you know what, I'm going to praise God for 3 things every day when I wake up. These are the types of things you can do that I believe will help us orient on gratitude and help us to be content so we can break down those walls of division that are caused by discontentment. So that's your poll question. Which of these 4 actions will you focus on this week? Obviously, we probably all need to focus on all of them, but which one? If you had to pick one, what is it going to be? Pick it, and I would encourage you, if you're so bold, to comment more specifically. If you're saying, you know, I'm going to stop renegotiating the terms, what is that about? Is this about your career? Is this about your family life? What is going on? Or if it's, I'm going to praise God, is it actually, how are you going to do that? What is going to be different about your week this week to do that? But this is what we're doing right now, is we're going to go wrap this thing up with a practice of praise here. And so I'm going to read Psalm 118, and Jake's going to come up and lead us in a closing couple songs. But I want you to, if you're not into singing online, that's okay. But I want you to actually take this time, if you're not going to sing, to reflect. What is it, God, that you're calling me to do this week and beyond, for that matter? And take that time to reflect. And I would encourage you this week to even spend some time journaling and reflecting as well, so we can be people of gratitude, people of unity. So let me read Psalm 118, 2 big excerpts from that. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Let all Israel repeat, his faithful love endures forever. Let Aaron's descendants, the priests, repeat, his faithful love endures forever. Let all who fear the Lord repeat, his faithful love endures forever. In my stress I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is for me, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? Yes, the Lord is for me. He will help me. Open for me the gates where the righteous enter, and I will go in and thank the Lord. These gates lead to the presence of the Lord, and the godly enter there. I thank you for answering my prayer and giving me victory. The stone that the builders rejected has now become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing, and it is wonderful to see. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Please, Lord, please save us. Please, Lord, please give us success. Bless the one who comes in the name of the Lord. We bless you from the house of the Lord. The Lord is God, shining upon us. Take the sacrifice and bind it with cords on the altar. You are my God, and I will praise you. You are my God, and I will exalt you. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. God, will you give us those hearts of praise this week and beyond? God, will you help us to stop living in discontent and be grateful because you are generous, because you give us everything we need, and allow that to impact the people around us in incredible ways that would be opportunities for your gospel, for your love to reach them, for your love and your gospel to reach our hearts. God, we thank you that you've given us this model. We thank you that you've given us this command. And now, God, we ask by your grace, by the Holy Spirit, that you empower us to live to be grateful people. In Jesus' name, Amen.
All right, we're going to get back into singing here. And this first song that we're going to come back with is How He Loves. We actually sang this one a week ago. And I wanted to choose this song today because many of you maybe already know the backstory for this, but the song was originally written by a guy named John Mark McMillan. And he wrote this song the day after his really close, his best friend had passed the day before in a fatal car accident. The reason that that story was so compelling to me is that he could have chosen to just be devastated by everything that had happened and just forget everything that that God does for us every day. But instead, he ended up writing a song that would actually impact so many people going forward. This song has been covered by a number of bands, and it has been kind of a staple in the worship scene for years now. And it was all out of a kind of a state of gratitude for the fact that God loves us, and it might not always be the pretty Hollywood love that we think of. Sometimes it looks a little messy, but he loves us through it anyways. And so that's kind of the basis of how this song came to be, and I just thought that was kind of cool given that we're trying to be grateful for what we do have this week. So we're going to get started with this one. So I ask you to sing with me. He is jealous for me, loves like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us, oh, how he loves us, and how he loves us, like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. And all of a sudden, and I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us, oh, and oh, how he loves us, and how he loves us, oh. We are his portion and he is our prize, drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If grace is an ocean, we're all sinking, then heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss, and my heart turns violently inside of my chest. I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yes, he loves. he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. All right, this next song is one that you may have heard before. This is Doxology. This is a song of praise. This is a song of gratefulness. Thank you, God, for everything that you give to us. And so hopefully you'll sing this along with me. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. We're going to go back through that. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. Amen. Praise you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you for continuing to be with us in a year that has been challenging in different ways for each of us. God, we know that you are present in our lives. And in this week, may you help us all to be thankful for the things that you continue to do for us. God, you are carrying us through right now, and we want to remember that. We want to hold on to the gratefulness of everything that you continue to do for us in our lives, the people you continue to surround us with, the relationships that you've helped us to build this year, the communities that we've seen come together in new ways. God, we just praise you for everything that you are doing right now. And we just pray that each person that's a member of our church that's watching online today could be mindful of the things that they're grateful for this week, that we could remember those good things that are happening in our lives to help remove discontent. Amen. So as we wrap things up here today, Converge Community, I just want to invite you to do a couple things. We did post a link. It's called a connection card. We posted that link in our video feed here. We just encourage you to go fill that out. That's an opportunity to submit prayer requests if you want somebody to be praying for something specifically for you. It's an opportunity for us to get to know you if we don't know you yet already. So go check that out. And we are looking forward to doing this again here in a couple of weeks. Our 3-week schedule, which we talked about earlier, this coming weekend is going to look a little different, but Mackenzie kind of shared with you the 2 and 2, so don't forget about that. In 2 weeks, we'll look to have another worship night here again, and then 3 weeks we'll be back at having another preview service. So as our final act of worship tonight, I also want to encourage you to head to convergecommunity.org /give. So we actually, I had to clarify the website. convergecommunity.org /give. This is your opportunity to worship through giving. It's something that Mitch alluded to it a little bit earlier. If you aren't regularly giving, it sometimes can be challenging to learn how to put money kind of in its place. If you're not a cheerful giver, that might not be the easiest thing to do sometimes. I can tell you personally, for me, that's something that really changed my relationship with money. It's something that evolved me to a better place where I started to be a better steward of the resources that God trusted me with. And if that's something you feel compelled to get started into, we want to have you go out to convergecommunity.org /give and feel free to jump in with us there. with that, we just want to thank you all for being here with us. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.